Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar series here today for website training. So this is our third session this week, our third and final session. Now, I always tell everyone that you're probably going to get the best and most polished version because it's the final one this week. So I'm sure you'll love it. Joining me today is Kelvin Rogers. Kelvin is our BowlsLink IT guru at Bowls Australia and knows this system inside out. So he's the best one to be taking you through this. I'm really here just as an intro and support act more than anything. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Kelvin and hopefully he covers everything you need to know about websites. Sorry, just one other thing. If you're not familiar with our webinar series, there is a Q&A section just down the bottom. If you want to type in any questions to that at any time, I'll be monitoring the questions and I'll jump in and ask the questions on your behalf and we'll get those answered. So please, don't hold back if you think something's not being covered. Okay, Kelvin, over to you.
Thanks, Beck. Welcome everyone, good morning. This is day 3 of these webinars, so definitely I think will be by far the best. Today what we'll look at doing is very similar to how we've done it in the last couple of days. So we'll look at the very basics of the website, how to set up your home page, how to post some news items, how to link from one place to another on your website. And then if you have any more detailed questions, I'm more than happy to answer them and make sure that everything that we answer any questions you have, and if I don't have the answer, I'll definitely get back to you as soon as possible. So far, I haven't had any questions I haven't been able to answer, which is always a good thing. So to start with, this is what you should see when you get access to your website. When you're told that you can log in, you should come to a page that looks like this. There's a big W that stands for WordPress at the top, and it asks for your username and password. And once they are in, all we need to do is log in. And what will happen is you'll be directed straight to a dashboard. And this is really what controls your entire website now. I'm working off a dummy website. It's one that we use for training with the RBMs and states and territories. And I can go, and what I will do is I will open up a copy of what the public would see on that website in another tab, just so that we can scroll through. And as I make changes on what we call the back end or the dashboard, you'll be able to see those changes, and we'll come out and have a look at them on the front end as well to see what everyone sees. Now, I'm going to start today with what we call our media library. And our media library is ultimately where we store all pictures and documents and video links or anything else that we put onto our website or we want to put onto our website. We can put them all in our media library, and we can organize our media library into folders, and we can create new folders, and we can upload whatever we want into these folders so that they're organized so that it's easy for us to find at the back. And when we need it. And I've got lots of pictures in here from a few different websites and some generic ones as well. And if I want to, what I can do is I can obviously take a picture like this, which is just a very generic picture, and obviously that's people doing barefoot bowls, so I would probably want to put that under my social folder, and I can just pick it up and drag and drop that into my social folder. And then what it says, it tells me that file's been moved. It's no longer in my big list. And when I go into social, you can see that that picture's sitting there. If I want to add media or files or documents that are on my computer, what I can do is I use the Add New button, which is at the top here. I can select my files, and from there, what I can do is scroll down and I can take one, or using my keyboard and the control key, I can highlight 2 or 3 or 4. And then when I open them, what it will tell me is that those files have been uploaded. And as I come down here to where all my pictures and files are kept, I can see that they've been uploaded in here. and it might just take a second for those to appear as a picture. But once that's done, I can then organize where I want them to go. So I know I've got a Word document here, or a PDF document, anything like that. I've got a PowerPoint presentation in there as well. I can organize those and they will sit there, and anytime that I want to reference them, I'll be able to pull them out of here and use them on my website, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, it says here, and I'll highlight this one, maximum upload size is 10 megabytes. 10 megabytes is quite large for a picture or a document. I don't think I've had anyone go over 10 megabytes at all as far as that goes. So if you do need to go bigger than 10 megabytes, let me know, and we can look at doing it on a one-off. But most pictures that will be uploaded or that you would want to put on your website aren't going to be much larger than probably 1 or 2 megs. Is that a question, Beck? All right.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself. So in particular relation to this is, do you use any particular file naming conventions for files and images? Just one other thing, Carolyn, we will be getting to menu structure later on, so I'll leave that one for the time being, that question. But yeah, do we use any particular file naming conventions for files and images?
Nope, it's completely over to you what you want to do and how you want to do it. Those naming conventions and things like that, they can all be altered in here. So you can give it a title, you can give it a caption. Alt text, for people who don't know what alt text is, alt text is actually what gets read by vision impaired browsers. So if you have vision impaired people come and look at your browser, what it will do is when it looks at that photo, the alt text will be read out, rather than to give them a description of what that photo is. It's really over to you how you want to do your file names and your naming conventions. Whatever works for you is best. And whatever, I guess the thing to remember is that you may not be the last person to use the website. So my advice is to keep it obvious. If it's a picture of, a pennant-winning team from 2012, that's probably the best title for the photo, because what you don't want is to have pennant winners and then someone comes along in 2 years' time or 3 years' time and trying to organise what year they are or anything like that, and they can't find it. So logical titles. There's no particular formats. There are some illegal formats that may cause damage, but documents, PDFs, JPEGs, PNG, all those sorts of photo file types and video file types are more than allowed. I'm going to jump back to my dashboard for a minute. And you'll see on my left-hand side, I have menus, and these menus control pretty much everything that I want to do. Everything that we can do in WordPress can be done 2 or 3 different ways. I'm going to show you, hopefully, the simplest way to do things, which is here in the middle of the dashboard. There's a welcome to WordPress, get started, customize your site. Next steps, there's an edit your front page. So editing your front page is what I want to look at as one of the big things for today. So if I click on that, what you should see when my computer comes through is I have a home page and I have a number of sections in my home page here. I also have what's called Yoast SEO. Now this may be open for a lot of people, and the first thing you'll see is this. My advice is, so Yoast SEO is something that helps search engines like Google or Bing look at your page and basically say whether your page is a nice page to look at on the internet or not. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the way that they index it. They all very mathematical algorithms behind how they work. So although they say that the readability of this page is average, and it says there are 0 transition words and we have 2 little content, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think if your page is conveying to people what you want it to, then that is probably the most important thing. And that's something that's really important to remember, is that you need to have a purpose for your website. whatever the purpose of your website is really what you should be focused on. And things that don't fit the purpose of your website or the reason that you have a website, you should look at possibly just removing them from that. Was there more questions, Beck?
Yeah, so just before we sort of move on to the next bit, just in regards to uploading videos. So the question is, can I upload a video directly or do I have to link it to YouTube?
All right, so my advice is to put your video into YouTube first and then take the link from YouTube onto your website. And the reason I advise that is YouTube, when you upload your video to YouTube, YouTube will resize your video for the screen that it's supposed to be viewed on. So if you've got a video and you upload it directly into your media library, you'll have to set the size, and that will be the size that gets displayed on every device. So if you have a video that looks really nice on your laptop, when someone goes to look at that on a mobile phone, it may be too big and they may only get one small corner section. If you put it in YouTube, YouTube will actually automatically adjust it for the size that it's viewed on. So our advice is put it on YouTube or Vimeo. Vimeo is actually really good as far as hosting goes. And then you can take those links and put them straight into your website. And that means that anyone who views it, the video will adjust sizing accordingly to the screen size. So no one will see it, and they'll be able to watch the video as per normal.
For what it's worth, that's how we do it for our Bowls Taz videos, and they're often quite big as well. So we do it through YouTube, and it is free to sign up to an account on YouTube to do that. Yeah,
as well. I think Vimeo is free as well to host, and they do things fairly well. Vimeo can do things like lock people out, and you don't get those little things at the end as well. All right, I hope that answers the question. And we'll go back to editing our front page. So when I look at my home page and the way that my home page is structured, I've got a slider section, a text info section, an info section, news, galleries, events, and sponsors. And when I pop out to my section here, my home page here, I can see that I've got my menus up the top. Then I've got my sliders, which are the big pictures with the little bit of writing over the front. I've got my text info section, and I've embedded a video in there, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. My info section, and then I've got my club news, which means I'm not using my galleries or my event section at the moment, and then I've got my sponsors. So every section that's here, you can either use them or not. So for instance, what I will do is, just to give you an example, you may say, I don't actually like having any of these sliders. So I can go through and remove all of my sliders. And then this beautiful button over here, the big blue update, is your best friend. Whenever you press that, what it will do is save a version of your page. So I'll just wait for this to finish spinning. And when I go out to my home page and I refresh it, my sliders have disappeared. Now, I can do that. I can take out everything from my text info section, and the same thing would happen. My text info section would disappear. So all of that writing would disappear. Now, if I do this, so realistically, you don't have to have all of these sections. You can have some of these sections. I don't advise that you have none of these sections. I'd like you to keep at least one or two of them. The sliders are really good because they can showcase what you're offering at your club very visually to the public. Now, I'm going to say that that was a mistake and that I actually want my sliders to come back. And over here above my update button, I can see revisions, and I've had 197 revisions on this website. And when I browse my revisions, what that does is actually shows me every version of the page that I've ever had. So if I go to my previous version, and you can see the changes. So I made a change to the link items, and there I removed my 3 sliders. And what I should do is restore that version. And fingers crossed, when I go back in, I should have my 3 sliders.
Just while that's loading, Kelvin, just a couple of queries that came through. One was just a hint for Anne. You can list your videos as unlisted on YouTube if you don't want to have them as a marketing tool. But specifically in regards to this, can you change the order of the sections, i.e. put news before the grey boxes?
No, we can't reorder the sections. My feeling on it, and this is my personal feeling, is that this is, sorry, my phone's, that we've got, thanks Jules, sorry, my partner's also working from home today. We can't reorder these. My feeling is that if you want your news section up, then you don't necessarily have to have your grey boxes. And if you look at what you've got in your slider section and your text info section, you don't necessarily have to have these. If you look at that and because if that's what you're really trying to showcase, and when we talk about these grey boxes and these being your info section, these are really just quick links to things that people want to find. And so if you're going to do that, then you may as well do that visually in your sliders anyway. That's more of it's sort of 50-50, but the short answer is no, we can't reorder those sections. You can just either get rid of one section or look at different ways of using things.
And another question, I've noticed sliders are not full size when viewed on an iPhone.
No, so what will happen, and I guess when you say full size, I'm not quite sure what you mean, and it's possibly an iPhone thing, but what will happen, and I'll try and explain this, is if you put a picture into this slider, so you can see that this top picture here, in here it's got everyone plus a little bit of sky at the top, and you can see the whole jack. And when I jump out to here, you can only see half the jack, and we've cut off a couple of people's heads. And that's because what happens is when you put a photo in WordPress, it will take up to 4 versions. So you'll have the full-sized version of the photo, a large, a medium, and a thumbnail version. And it will also center crop any photo. So what it will do is it will say, right, we need a photo to fit this screen. And so what we need to do is to make it that size, we're going to take the middle of the photo. So what they've done is they've cut it off at the top and they've cut it off at the bottom. And so it's displaying the middle of the photo. What may be happening on your iPhone, and don't quote me on this one because I'm not 100% sure, is that it's probably using a medium-sized photo. And when it center crops, it may be taking off more or less than what you're actually expecting it to.
Yeah, I've just had a look at it on my phone. So what it does, it brings it in, like it chops off the ends basically.
Oh,
and does it
the side?
into the middle. Yeah.
So if
you look at your phone landscape, it'll come up sort of full, and then if you're looking at it that way, then it just kind of centers it.
Yeah, so it may be to do with screen size. I'll double check with the developers about that. Thank you. Can you note that one for me, Beck, and I'll get the developers to have a look, because it may be mobile specific or it may be iPhone specific. They may have a different way of looking at it when they look at WordPress. Because if you're on an iPhone, I'm not sure what browser you're using, possibly Safari. Yeah, it may differ if you loaded it in Chrome on your iPhone. I'm not sure. All right, back to these. So sliders, pictures, subtitles, titles, and text. Subtitle at the top, title being the larger, bolder ones, and then text underneath it. If you do have a link, so for instance, the new indoor rink available for roll up now. And then what we've done on that one is we've added a button that says book now. And what that book now does is takes us through to another page within our website. And all I've done is taken the link for that page and put it into the link box, and then the text that I want to appear on the button under the link text. And that is how we'll end up with that button. If you leave those blank, like I have with these, then the box isn't there. There's no button, and you're just left with this. Now, the other thing I'll say is this. As you can see, this photo here has gone a little bit pixelated because it has been taken from a smaller image. And so when it's put on a screen this size, and it's not my screen's not huge, but when it's on this size screen, what happens is WordPress takes the largest sized photo it has available. So it may be the full-sized photo, and it has to blow it up to try and make it fit in here, which results in that pixelization. So my advice on photos is the better quality photo you can get, please use the best quality photos you can get. 99% of photos that you want to put on your website you can take with your mobile phone. iPhone, most phones nowadays have absolutely fantastic cameras on them. Like I can't fault too many of them. If you're shooting photos for your sliders in particular, I'd shoot in landscape and make sure that everything that you want is in the middle of it. But yeah, the bigger the size photo, the better resolution you're going to get on the front, and that's what really people are looking at when they first land on your website. Rule of thumb for most websites is people need to be able to find what they want within about 30 to 60 seconds. And if they can't find it, they're probably going to leave. So make sure that everything you want is there.
Now with sliders, can you change the timing of how fast the sliders actually slide through?
No, there's no timing change to my knowledge. The difference will be as to how many sliders you have. I've seen one club have about 15 sliders, and each slider went through quite quickly. But 15, I think, is probably a few too many. I wouldn't do more than 3 or 4 if I'm designing it. And they should be the 3 or 4 things that you really want to showcase about your club for visitors to your website. So depending upon what you're aiming at, if you're aiming at barefoot functions or you're aiming at venue hire, then those are the things that you should be showcasing in those sliders. Some pictures of some nice parties or functions that you've had, and some pictures of people on the green playing barefoot bowls when they've come down to do it. If that's what you're advertising, that's what you should be showcasing in those sliders. Anything else on sliders before we move on? So the text info section, which is the next section down, and this is where people who get past your pretty pictures at the top will come down, and this is where you can really start to actually tell them about what your club does. That's in there, I'm not sure. You've got your text info title, which is what appears in bold and a little bit larger up here, and then your text info, or the text itself underneath here. And I put in a video just to showcase that you can actually do things like put videos in. Sorry, I'll take that one back out. You can put pictures in, you can put videos in, you can put whatever you want on the front screen. A little bit of writing. If you do have more pictures, you can add them through the Add Media button. And again, you can put that in, and that just comes through to here. And from my media items, I can go through and pick whatever I want to put up there. So in that case, I had the video for Jack Attack, which I think I moved yesterday. There's a 30-second one. And I can insert that into my page. And when I insert that from my media, it automatically defaults to being there. And it will show you that the video is there. Alternatively, you could go to YouTube directly and take the link from your URL bar and drop that straight in there, and it would have the same effect. And then that would also store it in your media file for later use. For those who want to get really technical, this is probably the place where you can start playing with HTML coding. If you know what you're doing, feel free. If you don't, then this acts pretty much like any word processor. It is limited in terms of font styles and things like that. There are 6 predefined headings, pre-formatted headings, and the paragraph. You've got bold, italics, bullet points, quotes, linking to other areas. So if you wanted to link that through to a form or a document on your page, you can. And that is pretty much as it goes. I'll just say that. It's going to change things a little bit. My internet is slow. My partner is also working from home today, so my apologies if this takes a little bit longer than normal. And that would bring us to our info section. So our info section, again, we have the option as to whether or not we want to view it. I can sit here and say no. And when I go back to my page, and when we do this, you can see that that grey section has disappeared. And I've got a little bit of space in there, and that's mostly because I have, when I took the video out, I haven't cleaned up that quite properly. But that goes through there. So if you want to have it, you can. The way that we looked at this when we designed it was the sliders should be a visual showcase of what you've got and offer at your club, and then this should be more of a written representation of what those things would be. Again, I wouldn't go past 3, and so you look at the 3 biggest ones that your club offers to put in there. We do have a list of, there are icons in here. So there are 40 odd icons that you can pick from. They're not all perfect, but if we just look at the ones that make the most relevant sense to whatever it is that you are putting in, then obviously that would work. Vic's going to come at me with some questions.
That's okay, you just answered it. It was around the icons.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yes, you can remove the icons, and then there's you can select other icons that go in there. There are 44 of them. I think we were at one point looking for some more, because I know that there's not one for everything, but they are just little icons, and they're not. It's not pictures or anything like that. So they're just very quick reference points for what can go on your page. Now, the next 3 sections, which are your news section, your gallery section, and your events section, are all controlled by other parts of your website. So on your front page, the only thing that you really need to decide is whether or not you want to show your news section, or whether you want to show your galleries, or whether you want to show your events. They're all controlled by, so your news is controlled by what's called your posts, your events are controlled by your events, and your galleries are controlled by your galleries. I suggest with galleries and events, they're fairly straightforward. I can go in and have a look at my events. If I want to, I can add an event, and this will give me I can put in some information. Make sure I get the right date. When does my event start? Again, I can go through to pick my dates. So I'm going to say June 6th. What time does it start? It can start at 10 a.m. What time does my event end? So you may have an event that runs multiple days. So you can actually put it in. You could say that you've got a 2-day event or a 3-day event if it's a gala weekend. For me, I'm going to say we're going to go from 10 till 3. And then I can publish that. What will happen is when I go to edit my front page and I turn my events on, and just again, apologies, my internet is a little bit slow today. When I refresh this page, what I will have is there's my upcoming events. 6th of June, it's a gala reopening. And when people click on that learn more, it just takes them to the entire one that the entire post, the entire event that you've written. This can actually be really good for, particularly for members with regards to anything that's coming up that they need to know about. With the sponsors section, which is the last section on your homepage, it is pretty much add an image and then you can link through to a sponsor's website. Now, at the moment, these are quite small. They are designed to be business card shaped for the images, and we are trying to work with our developers to get them to make them a little bit bigger so that they do stand out a little bit more at the bottom of the page. And that will cover off pretty much everything on your homepage that you would want to put on. And like I said, it's really over to you as to whether or not you choose to have the homepage there or what you want on your homepage, because you can have all or just some of those things, depending upon what you're trying to do with your homepage. So what I'd like to look at next is what we call the posts or the news section. Now, this is quite an important section, and I think if you use this correctly, you can actually save yourself a lot of time. When we looked at the old websites, what we noticed a lot of clubs were doing was every week they would have a page dedicated to their pennant teams, and that meant a lot of editing because they were either going in and duplicating work and then making the additional changes that they needed to and publishing it, and they would have a very long page that scrolled quite significantly because they would have a record of everyone who played every week, or they would go in and they would have a very simple page that had, I guess, just that one set of teams for the coming week or the previous week, depending on where it fell. With these websites, I think it becomes a little bit easier to manage those sorts of things. What we can do is I can create, on my page, I've created posts previously for the pennant teams that we've been publishing, just as an example. And what I'll do is I'll create another one. Uh, 16th of June, I believe, is the next one. And then I can just list, apologies, that's my fingers. And what I can do is very quickly I can publish that. And what will happen is whenever I make a post onto my website, the newest post will always appear on that left-hand side. And you can see that's a fairly plain looking post. I haven't put any pictures in it. And all it is the team names. To put a picture on it, questions. To put a picture on it so that the picture appears here on the front page, that is what's called a featured image. And that is found within my post on the very far right-hand side at the bottom of the page. It will say set featured image. And I can come into my media library and I can pick whatever image I want. For me, I'm just going to use the club logo. And when I update my page or update my post, that will automatically translate to the front page of my website. And there you can see that that's come up now with the club logo as well. There was a question back, or is this it can be sorted later?
Can an Excel file be uploaded in a post?
I think that there are probably two things that we may want to talk about with that. One, are you looking to embed the Excel file so it appears as a spreadsheet within the post, or are you looking to link to the Excel spreadsheet? My guess is that you're probably wanting to insert the spreadsheet so that it looks like the spreadsheet does within a post. And if that's the case, then in theory, you could pretty much copy and paste that Excel into a post as a table. But that carries a couple of warnings, because when people start to look at tables on smaller screens, the tables tend to squeeze the columns across to fit on a mobile phone or a tablet screen. So it can get a little bit tricky.
Yeah, so Ian's saying so it looks like a spreadsheet. So probably one of the best ways would actually be to add it as an attachment, perhaps.
Yeah, you could. Probably the most, probably the best way to do it would be to perhaps save that as a Google Doc spreadsheet, and then you can link to that spreadsheet from a post. Alternatively, you could do something like draw a table itself within the post, and so you'll get something like that, and then you could paste into it from a spreadsheet. I'm not a big fan of tables on websites, only because they condense when people look at them on mobile phones. So it can cause a few viewing issues, and there's no real way around it, because if you have a table that spreads across a certain number of pixels on your screen, then when your screen doesn't have that many pixels, it loses that, so to speak.
So can they do it as an add media, or does that only work for PDFs?
No, you should be able to insert it as media, but what will happen with it is if I go to here and I go to add media, so I've got a document like this, I can insert that into the post. All it does is adds a link to that file, which is fine if that's what they want to do. So all that does is, and then if I view this, sorry, I'll just update it and show you what happens. So there's my document there. When I go to the email campaigns, what that does is tells me that it's going to open a Word document, and opens it as a document because that's what we've linked to. So it's possible that if that's the way you want to do it, then you can do it that way with an Excel spreadsheet. That shouldn't be a problem at all.
There was another suggestion from someone that perhaps you could take a screenshot of it and upload it as an image.
Correct. You could do that if you wanted to. Absolutely. As a JPEG or a PNG or a GIF, any of those would work. And that would be fine too. There's always more than one way to do everything in WordPress. Sorry, I just want to get rid of that. Okay, so the other thing that you'll notice here is that I have categorized these, and my categories for this, which is Pennant Teams 2020, sits nicely in the top right-hand corner. This one at the moment is not categorized, and to add categories, you will find them over here in the little box that says categories. Now, categories become quite important, and I'll show you why in just a moment when we start looking at the menus. But what I'm doing by putting it in a category is I am saying that this article belongs with all of these other articles. So when I click on my category here from the front page, what that will do is give me a list of everything in that category, and you can see what it's done is it's effectively applied a filter, and it's taken out every news article that has Pennant Teams 2020 as the category, and it's displaying them on a page for people to read. Now, the one thing I guess to get your head around is that this page doesn't actually exist. All it is a collection of those news items put together so that people can visually see them. So there's no going in and changing this page every week. All you're doing is adding a post to that category, and it will automatically enable you to, automatically enable you to put those all together and display them on one page without actually having to go through and edit it, which is quite a time-saving little device if you can use your categories correctly and get that. If you have a good category system, then you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of work on pages, because you can display all the information in one place without actually having to do a lot of the work. If I go back to my post, sorry, there was a question, Beck.
I've tried uploading as an image and it appears not very clear, but he's quite happy with the answers he's received so far. So
okay, we can have a look at it at maybe screen resolution or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. The other thing that you can do is with posts. So if I'm doing this Pennant Team every week, when I put my mouse over the title of it, I actually get an option to clone. And what a clone will do is it will copy everything exactly. And when I go into edit it, what I can do is I can go, okay, so it's the 16th, it's now going to be the 23rd. And everything else is saved. It still has the category, it has the featured image, it has all of this information in here exactly as it was posted. Reader's not available this week, so Henry's going to do that one. Better make sure I can publish that. And so that in itself will also save me time, because really all I'm doing is taking an exact duplicate of this. When I go back to my home page, it'll sit there. And that's as simple as it can be if you're going to publish your Pennant Teams every week in posts. And they're all grouped together. Any other questions about posts before I move on to the menu side of things? All right. So we had a question earlier, and I don't know what it was, about the menus, but hopefully this next section will answer that for you. There's two ways to deal with the menus. My preferred method is under appearance, and this is my personal preference, not any real reason why, and menus. And what it will do is it will give me a list of my menus, or what's in my menu structure. And you can see there, that structure has my club directory, competitions, and then I have some sub menus under that, and then I have an about us, and that is, those will all match up with my club directory, competitions. I've got sub menus, about us, and everything else runs across the top. Now, there are three menus. There is a footer menu, which is at the bottom of the page, a primary menu, which is this menu here in the white next to your club logo, and there is also what's called a top header menu. And the top header menu is the one that sits up here in the grey bar. For those of you who have been playing with this for a while, you may notice that when you put things in your top header menu, they don't necessarily appear, particularly on mobile phones or tablets. That's because the top header menu is not really displayed on that size screens. And what will happen if, and I'll see if this works, is if I squeeze this up so it looks more like a mobile phone, when I go to my mobile phone, I get a hamburger menu that looks like this. And then I can go through and do that. I'll just expand that back out. So your primary menu is the biggest one, or the most important one. I'm just going to take out a couple. I'll take out this category here. Now, the beautiful thing about your menus is that you are not limited to just putting pages in. What you can do is, from my menu structure, if I want to insert anything into my menu, I can pick anything from this left-hand side. So I can put in a page if I want to, which is what a lot of people are used to doing, particularly under the SportsDG system. But now I can do things like I can put in my posts. I can put in a custom link. So if I wanted to, I can put in, oh, how do I spell bowls correctly? I can put in a link to Bowls Australia just by copying or pasting their website into there. I can put in my categories. So here I can add my pennant teams, and I can put in my event categories as well if I was using them. This will automatically come up to your most used. You can view all, and if you really wanted to, you can do a search as well, and that will bring up the ones that you can use. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a category, and whenever I add anything to my menu structure, it will always drop it at the very end of my menu. Now, I don't want my pennant teams to sit under as a separate menu on its own. So if I looked at this at the moment, I'll go to my competitions page, you can see that my pennant teams actually sits as a menu, because that menu will carry on down the bottom here. Now, I don't want it to sit there, because I think that my pennant teams should sit under my competitions. And what you'll see is everything that's lined up hard on the left here is a menu that appears here along the top. Everything that is indented from them appears as a sub item or a sub menu, and it will always be a sub menu of the one above it. So if I really wanted to, I could put pennant teams under my barefoot bowls, and it would create a 3-layered menu for me, or a 4-layered menu. So when I go and I jump into the menus here, even when I go home, sorry, I'll just get rid of that. There's my club directory, my competitions, my social, my barefoot sits under that, my pennant teams sit under that. There's a link to the Bowls Australia website. And so all of that can be structured from within there. That's how I prefer to do it. There is another way of doing it. Sorry, did we have a question, Beck?
Yeah, so how many items can I display in the primary menu? It looks like it's limited to 6 or so. Yeah. Maybe I should use sub-menus to include more.
That is exactly what I would do. And again, depending on what you're doing with your website and how you want to structure it, you may have probably 5 or 6 up here, and underneath that you would have everything else flowing from it. While I'm on this page, so what you'll see is I've logged into my dashboard, and then I've used my club site here, and I can go out and I'll open it in a new tab, but I can go and visit my site. And when I go to visit my site from my dashboard, I still retain this WordPress menu bar up here. And one of the things that I have is what's called Customize. And I can jump into Customize here. And what that will do is open up a little shelf on this left-hand side. And it gives me a few more options, but it also allows me I can alter my menus from here if I want to. This gets a little bit messier, which is why I don't like it, because if I go, right, I want to add an item, then all of this is getting pushed further and further across, and I lose a lot more of it. So I'm not a big fan of doing menus that way, but you can, and your structure will come up immediately over here. However, what you can use this one for is site identity. And the big one on site identity is the site title. So in this case, we're calling it Strachan Bowling Club. And then you have your club logo here, which I can remove my logo. And when I go to change my logo, and I'll just pick another one. Where is the other aeroplane? It's going to ask me that. I'm going to skip the cropping. It may look a little bit weird. It may stretch it out. Yeah, and obviously that's stretched out my menus a little bit more too. But what you can see is that those changes are actually occurring in real time as you do things on the. So if I just squeeze this up a little bit. They occur in real time. So as I'm making the changes in this menu, the changes are appearing over here on my live website. And then if I'm happy with them, I can publish those, and that's how my site looks. The same thing with anything else that I can find under here. Under the customize option, any changes I make are automatically done to this side over here at the same time. Theme colors, we've tried to limit it to 2 just because we found that previously when we let people have carte blanche with their websites, we would find things like yellow writing on black backgrounds and green on green and things like that, which caused a little bit of a headache for some people trying to read them. So theme colors primarily control button colors, background, foreground, and those sorts of things, rather than the actual background and foreground of the site itself. From where I am, that is about all I have for today. I'm happy to answer any questions if people still have them. Otherwise, I do thank you for your time. I hope that you have found this a little bit informative, and that you can always come back and have a look at them. There are online resources which have covered all of this as well on the Bowls Australia website. Otherwise, you can contact myself or Alan, Edie, or Beck. They all know how to do things on these websites fairly well now too. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions people may have.
The question just came through, can you make different users rather than everyone signing in under one login?
Yes, absolutely you can. Sorry, technical issue. Cancel. Yes, you can. Under users, you can add new users here. You can see obviously I've got a few people under this one. If you go to add new user, you can give them a username. They need to have a unique email address. The role that you're probably going to give them is administrator. My advice is, because this system doesn't generate emails, is that you add them without sending an email that requires their confirmation. And then you can go add new user. And when you go back to your user list, what you'll find is they will appear there, and then you can edit it and generate a password for them. So if I was to go in, to give you an example, I can go in and edit, because I know this is me. I can go in, if I scroll all the way to the bottom of my password, my profile, there's a generate password, and then I can make that whatever I want. And the next time they log in, they can change that back to whatever they want. I'm not going to update, I'm going to cancel that. I won't update my password because I'll never remember what that password was. If you're wondering how you can change your own password, anytime I come up here, I can go to edit my profile, and it will take me to that same page where I can do things like update my password, change my password. If I really want to, I can do things like this, which is just change the colors of how some of the default things of how this all looks. I'm not bothered by colours and things like that.
With the users, Kelvin, if you add a new user, can you limit what they're able to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so where you have, I'll just jump back in here. So you can make them different roles for different things. So club admin is something that we created for us, which allows them to sort of do a few things, but not very many. I don't have a complete list of what all of these are, but subscriber, manager, SEO editor, just look after your search engine optimization part. Editor, contributor, author, and administrator. All of those are default WordPress roles, and you should be able to find out about them under either at wordpress.org or under the documentation. And they'll be able to tell you exactly what they would do. I don't have that information off the top of my head because I only set people to be administrators. But if you're wanting to look to expand the people that are doing it, absolutely. Authors and contributors are probably the two that I would use. But I'd investigate a little bit further and have a look at it if you're interested in doing that.
Do we have any other questions that you'd like to ask while we have Kelvin here? If you walk away from today and you do think of some other questions, or as you start to delve in to your website a little bit more, some things come up, either that you've forgotten or that you want to refresh, then there's no problem at all. You can shoot through a question either directly to Kelvin, directly to me, or our regional bowls manager, Alan Eady. Alan will also be available once, with restrictions loosening and things like that, once he can actually start making his way back around clubs and having some face-to-face meetings. He might be able to actually sit down with you and go through a couple of things if you need some more assistance there. And as I said, if you have any other questions at all that pop up, then please feel free to send them through. If there's anybody on the line today that perhaps doesn't have a website for their club and just wanted to log in and check out and see what it was all about, then these websites are an offering that's free to our clubs. So due to the partnership with many of the states like Bowls Tasmania and Bowls Australia, we offer this for free to our member clubs. So if there's anyone online that hasn't got this set up for their club, feel free to contact us. My email is ceo@bowlstasmania.com.au, and we can I'll get in touch with Kelvin and we'll get you sorted and get a website up for you.
Absolutely, more than happy.
With no further questions, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So for those that are looking at competition training, we'll be running competition training next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 11 a.m. Kelvin will be back with us running that for us. And that's all based around the pennant result system. So if you're a match manager or, getting ready for next season, if you're an administrator at your club and you're looking towards next season, then encourage your members to log on to that and start to learn how they can do that for next year, because it is a very important task being able to log those pennant results. So the information is on our Facebook and our website. It's been emailed to all the clubs and you can register for those webinars. This one will be live, not live, but it will be available on our website later on. So if there's something that you think, what was that again that Kelvin went through, I want to watch that again, then you'll be able to access this video back and go over any extra bits that you need to. And I'll also have a link to some manual and Q&A stuff that you might be able to use as well. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Beck. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. And thanks very much for joining us, Kelvin. Really appreciate the time that you put into this.
Not a problem, Beck. Anytime. I'd rather be down there in person doing it, but, unfortunately.
Next best
at the moment. Yeah, next best.
All right. No worries. Thanks again, everyone, and keep safe.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.